Welcome, everybody. Really lovely to be here with you all. So if this is your first time, this is the Wednesday Night Well of Being. I'm Eve, and we are here at the San Francisco Dharma Collective, which almost inconceivably is an entirely volunteer-run center, supported on generosity. Unbelievable, so beautiful. And did anybody else feel like the gravity of the world was extra heavy today?
Yes.
Yeah. Every day. Today it kind of hit me a little harder, and so I'm extra happy to be here with you all. And it inspired me to actually, before our meditation, to go back to some of the core definitions of this book we have been making our way through for also an inconceivable amount of months. And this is the Guide to the Bodhisattva Way of Life. This is an 8th century text written by Shanti Deva, and he was a monk at the time. There's so many interesting stories about him. One is that he was appeared to his other monk friends as not trying too hard, loafing around. And others' accounts say that he was actually up all night practicing. So during the day, he just seemed tired and lazy. But he was asked to give a talk by his monk friends, not because they held him in such high esteem, but because they thought, let's embarrass the heck out of this guy. Like, yeah, you give a talk on your enlightenment. And he gave a talk, which is the stanzas we're covering here, and then disappeared. And the talk became such a foundational text for Mahayana and Vajrayana and Tibetan Buddhism, because it really encapsulates this quest to live with an open heart in the middle of the fire, or in the middle of this world on fire. And this is what it means to become a bodhisattva, or a warrior of compassion. And, I think it is completely reasonable and okay for sometimes on a day-to-day basis to feel like that's too much to ask of ourselves, to be a warrior of compassion when there's so very much suffering. But I think it's also very reasonable to ask ourselves to keep checking in whether in this moment it feels a little more possible, and in this moment it's a little more possible, and kind of keep that refreshed sense, not like, I'm going to do this kind of white knuckle, no matter what, I'm going to keep my heart open, even with all the horrible things going on in my personal and in the global world. Sometimes it's okay to have some collapse and some overwhelm and some despair. And then we get to gather back here together and lift ourselves together. And, kind of that beautiful metaphor of the net, being pulled from different sides and lifting it all up together slowly. So that's what I'm hoping we can do here together tonight. And I wanted to, share, we're now way in the end of the book, but in the very beginning of the book, I do think, no offense, Shanti Deva, but I do think he gets pretty redundant towards the end. Like, it's a lot of, he's saying the same things. In the beginning, there's hot material. Like, sometimes the band, they have that great first album, and then it's like, oh man, like it just feels like a remix. Not saying that that is entirely true, but there's a couple gems in the beginning that just feel so beautiful and essential. So I'm gonna revisit those for us. And this first one is going all the way back to page 11. And as many of you know, this isn't just the Guide to the Bodhisattva Way of Life, which is actually kind of a small text. There's a lot of secondary commentary here by Pema Chödrön, who writes about the utility and function of this text in the everyday. So she says here, Bodhisattvas practice in the middle of the fire. This means they enter into the suffering of the world. It also means they stay steady with the fire of their own painful emotions. They neither act out or repress them. They're willing to stay right where they are and explore an emotion's ungraspable qualities and fluid energies, and to let that experience link them to the pain and the courage of others. And I really like that very down on the ground definition of what it is to be a bodhisattva, because big heroic idea, I'm going to stay open with the suffering of the whole world. But then we take it into, I'm going to be with my frustration. I'm going to be with my feeling of betrayal, right? Very personal. And this idea that this kind of sitting with the world on fire, there's a kind of analogy of sitting with that fire of an intense emotion. And as some of you know, emotion is my area of great passion and expertise. I've been studying emotions, teaching on emotions for a number of years now. And this idea, what she puts here, neither act out nor repress. Because for some of us here, when we feel the fire of that frustration or the kind of burning intensity of our emotion of loneliness, we will just like do something. Like, I gotta distract, I gotta buy something, I gotta yell at someone, I gotta do something. But then others of us will also just be like, I gotta do anything to not feel this. I gotta suppress, I gotta distract, I gotta somehow cover over this feeling. And so her invitation here is neither react nor repress, to actually sit in the fire, like be with the emotion. And what's so helpful about that is we start to then trust that the emotion will shift and change, actually without our interference. So we don't think that next time I got to do this thing or I got to avoid, like we actually start to have this trust, like within our own experience of our emotions, that they will shift and change. So I really like that definition she puts there on how bodhisattvas practice. And she talks here, or Shanti Deva says, Bodhicitta, meaning the awakening mind, in brief is said to have two aspects. First, the aspiration or bodhicitta and intention, and then active bodhicitta, practical engagement. And I think this is really helpful for us. Shanti Deva further says, wishing to depart and setting out upon the road. This is the difference of how this difference is conceived. The wise and learned should thus understand the difference which is ordered and progressive. So we can start, as we will in our practice, and as we do practice, with this intentional or aspirational bodhicitta, like what I am doing here, whether it's focusing on the breath or doing focused attention onto the whole body, I'm doing this with the intention that it benefits all beings. That aspirational bodhicitta. We can do it in the morning, we can do it in the evening, and that is like planning to go on a trip, which is great. It's part of the way there. You got to make the plan. And then what he calls here is the bodhicitta, the active bodhicitta. That's when we actually engage and take action, whatever that is, whether it's big or small. The piece that he doesn't write about here, but a bit later, is the third aspect of bodhicitta, which is ultimate bodhicitta. And that's when we no longer have to look for someone to enact our bodhicitta upon. We're no longer looking around us and seeing suffering and then responding, or seeing someone in need and responding. It's just that the way that we are in reference to the world is with such loving presence. There's no target, there's no boundary, there's no beginning, there's no end. So that kind of ultimate level of bodhicitta. And I think earlier, a small group of us were talking about how the possibility of any of these, aspects or strengths of practice, they're only really available when we feel resourced. And one huge important part about this book is the intention is for you to continue to strengthen your own heart, the capacity of your heart, to stabilize your mind, and then be able to have that, towards the world, to the rest of the world. So these are the foundational concepts of this book, but as a reminder, like what does it mean to be a bodhisattva sitting in the fire, not just this huge fire of all the things going on in our world or our personal lives, but even in that like momentary flash of emotion, right? We can start right there, and these different levels. And then one thing that I really love is when we have this aspiration, it's not like, may more beings not have suffering, or may everybody in San Francisco or in the Mission District. It's may all beings of all time, as long as space remains. Inconceivable, like too big, and that's by design. Like we're supposed to stretch the potential imagining of what it would be like to have that much compassion to its very edges, in some ways to kind of just like cut through this relative level thinking of like, I can't care for more people, like I already care for too much, it's already too much. But when we go that big, when we can recognize how big that need is, then, you know, our mind gets kind of knocked out. She says, sentient beings are as countless as the grains of sand in the Ganges, so this river in India. Because there are more than the mind can grasp, the wish to save them all is equally inconceivable. By making such an aspiration, our ordinary confused mind stretches far beyond its normal capacity. It stretches limitlessly. And when we expand our personal longing for liberation to include immeasurable beings, the benefit we receive is equally immeasurable. In short, the more we connect with the inconceivable, indescribable vastness of mind, the more joyful we will be. So I'll say that one more time. Oh, but they're playing Tupac outside. So good. In short, the more we connect with the inconceivable, indescribable vastness of mind, the more joyful we will be. And in kind of simple terms, if you haven't noticed, most of the time we are stuck in our daily thoughts. They're just like coming and go, like we're either doing something or we're thinking about doing something. And according to some research, at least 50% of the time, we're not even thinking about what we're doing, right? We're thinking about something else. There's an estimate we have about 6,000 thoughts a day. And how many of those do you think are repeats? Right? Like same. And how many of them are like about us? Like a lot. So this expansion, you know, it's like this big bench press of your compassionate heart to imagine this like inconceivable amount of beings. It's almost like that, you know, that wow, like that openness, that lightning strike. And the mind gets out of that habitual 6,000 long thought strain about ourselves and our laundry and our life and how we're not doing it right or whatever it is. And you're just like, wow, all beings. Can I focus on all of them being free? And the joy, and that joy, right? So that's kind of the ethos. I was talking to a friend about this book. I love talking to Buddhist skeptics. He's like, but I don't believe Buddhism. I was like, these aren't beliefs. These are like, just pay attention. What's it like when you're thinking about yourself all day? And he's like, well, it's kind of boring. I was like, right. Like, what's it like when you think about someone else? And he's like, usually it feels better if I'm not trying to fix them. I was like, very honest. If you're fixing someone in your head, it's not as enjoyable. But what if you're just imagining their well-being? You know, so again, this is not meant to be some sort of doctrine or some sort of telling you, but just that, what is it like to really connect with that possibility of limitless capacity and to feel that like intrinsic quality within us that can be right there in the fire. So we're going to start, we've been doing the Tonglen practice the last couple sessions. This whole chapter is on Tonglen and imagining other people's suffering as a way to break through that self-centered thought loop. But tonight we're actually going to invite something a bit more like a body scan practice or mindfulness of the body, but one in which we really use an appreciation and a kind of love towards our own body as a jumping off point to send love to other bodies, right? So to kind of use our own as a doorway into others. And I think I recognize most of you, but if you haven't been here before, we do about a 20-30 minute sit. And then we will have some reflection and discussion, and we'll talk a little bit more about the chapter. There are bathrooms and tea in the back, and if it's possible to wait until the sit is over, that's great. And we are so fortunate to have the fiercely compassionate being Mace at the door, so you can be at ease here. She is helping us be able to settle into our practice in the room. And friends at home, I hope you have your fierce fur beings with you to protect you and otherwise. So yeah, just finding a comfortable position. And especially for end of the day on high gravity days, I recommend coming to the front of your chair, somewhere you're less likely to kind of slump back and take a snooze. So finding this really beautiful uprightness of the spine. Just the natural way that the spine rises up from the sit bones. And then inviting a sense that the very top of the crown of our head is reaching all the way up towards the heavens above. And I can feel even a bit more upright if we tuck the chin ever so slightly. And bring a sense of ease, true calmness to the face, as though imagining the face of a sleeping baby. Not a care in the world. And ever so slightly, imagine touching the shoulder blades together so that the chest is a bit more open, allowing the heart to feel shining and open. And inviting the breath to flow freely through the belly. And to begin the practice, just listen to the bell through the entire sound of the bell. And let's begin this meditation today with that intention, with arousing this heart of bodhicitta. And so taking a moment and seeing if there is even a spark of that sense of an aspiration to wake up, become more free, feel less encumbered by difficult, disturbing emotions. Is there that intention that's here right now? Engaging with just that sweet tenderness of heart that recognizes the great suffering of this world. And feeling that squeeze of the heart and letting it be fuel for that fire, that longing for awakening. Countless inconceivable amount of beings suffering in inconceivable amounts of ways. And finding that as inspiration for this practice. And holding the energy, the fire of our intention right here in the heart, but shifting our attention and awareness to just noticing a simple experience of being in this breathing body. So breathing in, this simple, bare noticing of what it is like to breathe in. And breathing out, maintaining that simple, bare noticing of breathing out. Of course, the mind will wander and get distracted. But for a couple more moments, see if you can feel this very subtle sense of what's sometimes described as bare noticing or bare attention, experiencing the body, breathing in, experiencing the body, breathing out. And this may give us a sense of ease and relaxation, but let's balance that with some vividness. So on the next breath, inviting a quality of precise, wakeful attention. We bring the breath in through the nostrils, noticing the subtle sensations, and then gently exhaling. A couple more times with that vivid, close attention to the sensations right at the nostrils. Now bringing our attention and awareness to the face and the muscles of the face, and feeling a sense of care, kindness, and love towards this face and everything it has expressed today. A sense of compassion and care for everything that has been suppressed on the face today. Something we didn't feel we could show or had to hide. And allowing our attention and awareness to gently caress this experience of the face at ease. This incredible face where we experience sight and smell and taste, where we communicate. Inviting ease, relief to this face and everything it does. And taking this natural sense of care for our own face and experience and extending that out, imagining the possibility that all beings could feel a sense of relief and ease. All beings could have that relaxation, not needing to hold, not needing to suppress. Just finding peace, calmness, and that deep appreciation. All the expression, all the information received in this wonderful area of the body. May all beings experience ease and peace, relief. It could be helpful to imagine a particular being who today their face had to hold so much. Maybe they were withholding great frustration. Maybe they were expressing great grief or tears. It's this targeted sense of care emanating out. Now, gently shifting attention and awareness to our shoulders and neck. So many of us carry so much in these areas. So, first, just bringing a sense of unburdening, melting, releasing through the neck and the shoulders. Feel, sense, or imagine all we've carried today, physically or emotionally, and again, inviting that ease, that relaxing, that softening of the muscles through the shoulder and the neck. Maybe there's a sense of relief or ease. And let's see if we can extend that. May all beings experience some sense of ease and release through their neck and shoulders. May all beings feel unburdened, lightened in their loads. Imagining folks who may be carrying so much, may be carrying everything they own on their shoulders today. May these beings feel rested and at ease. And bringing our kind attention and awareness to the torso, feeling the heart, ribs, and the belly. Inviting this heart to feel held and protected. Inviting this belly to feel at ease, comfortable, no needing to clench, tighten, twist. Wishing this beautiful, beautiful heart, all its capacity, a place to rest. Inviting this very, very wise belly to feel at ease and free. And again, if there's any sense of care and connection that we can feel through holding our heart and supporting the belly, let's extend that. Imagining all beings having support for their heart, ease in their bellies, including bellies so much needing nourishment and food, hearts that feel broken with loss. May these beings know support and ease. And shifting to these hands, arms, biceps, shoulders. Amazing what these hands can do and make, create and cook. Noticing just the latent energy in the hands. And inviting these hands also to feel ease and support. No longer doing what they are so good at doing, all the things, putting on our clothes and making our food and opening doors and many, many, many other things. If we feel any sense of ease, relaxation through the hands, extending that out. May all beings have that sense of ease in what they carry, what they hold, what they craft and create. May all beings experience this kind of ease through their body, through their hands. And bringing attention and awareness to these legs, these knees, these feet, moving us all around, getting us here, getting us there. Imagine sending just a sweetness, as though we could offer a showering sense of relaxation and support, all the achy areas getting everything they need. Imagine feeling just a flow of ease and energy, the legs and the knees and the feet. And imagine extending that to all beings. And all beings could feel that sense of support and ease. And that all beings who have aches and pains, who struggle with walking, may they feel relief. May they feel the ease of lifting their legs up, being supported. And then feeling this precious, precious gift of this human body. And with great kindness and care, simply bringing attention and awareness throughout the whole body. And considering whether our attention and care for this body can directly connect us to attention and care to all bodies. Every body just like ours, wanting to be free from aches and pains, wanting to be unburdened at ease. And then releasing all thoughts, images, and ideas, and just resting in simple presence with this breath, this body. Thank you for your practice. So part of our opportunity here every Wednesday, oh my God, we're streaming out. Is our back exit? Just kidding. Friends online, we had a lot of people head to the bathroom at once. I was worried they were trying to escape. Part of our opportunity here every week at the Dharma Collective is to be the change we want to see in the world, as it is said. And this world needs compassionate communities of care. It deeply, deeply needs compassionate communities of care. And we get to gather here together to practice the Dharma and reflect and do so in a way that feels supportive for one another. So to do that, we engage with our reflection, what we are sharing with one another or what we are hearing, really with a sense of deep compassion. So if you are interested and curious and want to share, you're sharing from this place of compassion, really considering the room and other beings. And when you're listening with great compassion, recognizing both equanimity and compassion. There is no way possible we can really know or understand the person's, depth and complexity who's speaking, even if we live with them and they're here with us, right? So really taking in with this kind of openness what's being said, and also with this great tenderness and care, that recognition of shared desire to be more free, to have more sense of our basic intrinsic goodness. And so it's such an essential part of our time here together, is being in community and sharing in community. And that also includes, as much as possible, while you're here, just for the remaining time, can you be really loving and compassionate with your own thoughts, your own self, whatever comes up. How's that sound, everybody? Sounds good? Friends online, sound good? Okay. So I'd love to hear from folks. Anything you'd like to share about that practice? Questions, reflections, any insights? It's I often say, but it is because I think it is very true, we don't just benefit from practice, we benefit from reflecting on our practice. Otherwise, it's kind of like, I did the thing, oh, now we're gone, right? Like, what was it like? What did you learn? What was interesting or unusual? And if friends here, please use the mic, or friends online, you can just raise a hand. Yes, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I really liked the part where you mentioned kind of thinking about your face and feeling sort of gratitude for your face, for the expressions and feelings that it's shown, and for the things that it suppressed, and then for other people's faces. I don't often think about my face as transmitting my feelings, but it absolutely is. And as soon as I kind of thought about that, I felt just like a reflection of the day and all of the feelings that I'd felt, and it was really interesting. So thanks for, that was a new nuance.
Sweet. Yeah, I'm uniquely qualified for that observation, that my dad, as some folks know here, really studied the face, right? And the 42 muscle groups in it. And when I was 16, in order to get the car on the weekends to go see all the underground punk shows I wanted to see, he took photos of my face when I was 16. So I got to make all the facial expressions and really when I was like, he didn't tell me what they were, I would just put them on my face. And when you put your brows down, flare your eyes, and close your lips, you actually feel anger, even if you're not angry at something. So I really like the power of these facial expressions, and then how much they actually, and what we suppress has its own charge and energy too. We're like, how's your day? It's great. How are you? Right? Like there's a lot that's actually just not expressed. So yeah, God, that was there for you. And I do, some of us know our are points of kind of more tension, but wow, we hold so much in the face. So thank you. Yeah. Other folks?
Yeah, I remember reading about your father actually in Malcolm Gladwell's Blink book, and then learning that you were his daughter. I was like, it's crazy. It's very, very cool. This is maybe sort of a silly, sharing, but like the monkey mind was going, quite a bit today, and so, initially said something that was like I thought really powerful, which was that it's not just it's all beings of all time throughout the entire universe.
Yeah.
And that got me thinking like on this cosmic scale. Right? It's
Yeah,
just like, okay,
great.
so what kind of beings are there out there? And then the monkey mind was like, do the thing that we're thinking of, which is alleviating their suffering, do those other beings actually have like that thing of suffering, or is it like some other thing that is hard for us to kind of grasp?
Yeah.
And then the idea of being that we can actually sort of have this infinite reservoir, but then I was like, it felt like the numbers were just like so large that I was
Yeah.
kind of like, after a certain like number, like if there's like 5 quintillion stars, like, okay, well, it's impossible to imagine. And so I just kind of, and then I felt like I was like definitely losing the point of the entire thing because I was like, just like going. So I was trying to bring it back to like, sort of like the compassion, but I kind of
Yeah.
got stuck on that loop there.
Oh, I think I'm sure you're not alone. I don't know if anyone was in the quintillion, but monkey mind, anybody here tonight? Yeah. And I think it's so sweet to have compassion towards that, right? And just be like, oh, my mind wants to get curious right now, either dullness or curious, right? Like my mind wants to really like, go somewhere with this. And there's such a effervescence in that creativity. And I often like to think of it like almost like you have a little butterfly net, like, oh, hey, like come back here. Like that wonderful energy of effervescence, of awareness, come back to my practice, right? Because it's there, which is great. Like you're not asleep. You're not like ruminating about someone you don't like you're in the realm of practice. So it just needs like a little pulling in. So yeah, thank you. Yeah. Anyone? Oh, hi, Amber, is that you? Can't see you very well. Someone has a
Yes,
hand raised.
yep.
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Maybe if we could turn it up a tiny bit. The friends online can hear, but I think we're going to turn it up in the room for one moment. Okay, try again.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, let me actually take these off. It might be.
No, it's great. It was our volume that was bad.
Okay, okay. Well, I just wanted to say thank you for that meditation. That was really just, I haven't had a meditation like that in a long, long time. Really so to the body, and so loved how, getting in contact with what I am suppressing, keeping at bay. That was such a channel to discomfort in my own body, this holding.
Mm.
That was a channel to compassion. So when I thought of these other beings who are holding so much, it just really, really opened my heart. So just wanted to say thanks.
Thank you, Amber. It's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. We've been doing so much of this, exchanging self for other, and in the small groups, working with equanimity and, breaking down the barriers of our sense of who is deserving of our care and love and who isn't. But when we tend to just that simple sense of what we're holding and realize like everybody's holding, this like floodgates can kind of open, and not in a way that we feel dragged under, but in a phew, like I heard it in your voice, Amber, just that like, wow, deeply in the body, not trying to hold it out any longer, not trying to like protect. I mean, felt like everybody's shoulders in the room just like dropped an inch when it was like, stop carrying. Everyone's like, whoa, right? So much we're kind of holding here, kind of guarded against. Understandably, there's a lot to guard against. So, yeah. Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah.
So I thought this practice was really interesting. Sometimes I have, with a metta practice where, doing the traditional phrases can feel a little bit flat to me.
Yeah.
Sometimes you connect with it, sometimes not so much. But this, it felt very concrete, where you're feeling a sense of ease in the body and directly wishing that and sending that out. So
Yeah.
I thought that was really nice.
Oh, I'm so glad. I actually thought of this practice because of a practice Mace led however many years ago. Remember that body scan you led? And she was like, thank you, lungs. You do this thing in my body that I really need. Thanks, belly. You do this other. And I was thinking about that practice, Mace, and just like, how can we bring metta to the body, but how can it help us feel connected to all bodies? So, yeah. I've never led this before, guys. So thanks for experimenting with me. I felt like it was a meaningful way to connect with the body and other bodies. Anybody else before we get into a bit more on the body tonight? Okay, so here we are, zooming from page 14 to page 300 and, oh God, 316. Oh yeah, okay. It's gonna be hard and then it's gonna get easier. Okay, ready for that? This first one, whew, this is this is a high bar. So Shanti Deva says, and so we should be undeterred by hardships, for by influence of use and habit, people even come to grieve for one whose very name strikes terror in their hearts. People who come to grieve for one whose very name strikes terror in their hearts. And then I'll unpack here. I love Pema Chödrön's example. She says the Dalai Lama was teaching in front of a large audience when he received the word that Mao Zedong had died. He paused and then started to weep. For most Tibetan people, nobody was more feared than Mao, yet the Dalai Lama's first reaction was to weep. Perhaps in part because of the suffering that Mao would go through as a result of his cruelty. So it's interesting, he wasn't even like, I'm so sad, my friend, obviously not friends, and anybody who knows that story, the Dalai Lama really tried with open arms as this teenager when he was first kind of meeting the world. He met with Mao and thought they had an agreement, and then of course, that was not honored, and there was invasion and then exile and great suffering. So it wasn't as though he cared about Mao, but he recognized that someone who's perpetuated that much harm, generated that much harm, and in his worldview or in his cosmology, that means that he will suffer greatly in his lifetimes to come. So whether or not you believe that someone who acts cruelly will then suffer in lifetimes to come, the Dalai Lama cared about his suffering, right? And when I think about certain people who I really struggle with on the world stage these days, and the idea that I would be sad if they died, right, feels inconceivable. However, when I think about and let myself wonder about the quality of their suffering, and the quality of the suffering they perpetuate among those closest to them. It's, there is that, I don't know if I would come to grieve for those who strike terror in my heart, but I can feel some sense of care for that amount of suffering, right? And this is a really tricky one, and it's very common across different aspects of Buddhist literature that when we see someone who's doing harm, our pure vision, our sacred vision would be able to see them as just confused and delusional, right? And it's like, well, does that mean they're off the hook? I think it's a really tricky one. I'm curious, I know other folks have heard this, how do you meet that invitation that Buddhism offers of looking at someone who's caused or is causing great harm, but finding this way to see in that pure vision way that they are confused, they are, misguided. Instead of holding on to that anger, instead of creating that boundary between who you care about and who you don't care about, them distinctly on the outside of it. How do you work with that? Anybody? Yeah, great.
So I think that people who, I don't know, behave very meanly have had a lot of trauma in their own lives. Because if you were happy, why would you be mean to other people? So I just kind of see it as it's already happened to them. And we just don't know what it is.
Yeah. That's beautiful, Kimberly. Thank you. Yeah. And that's so like clear. Is that possible even when it's someone close? Or is that more like someone far away?
I think everyone.
Everyone? Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Anybody else? Mace, are you like hiding back there?
Well, I'm just thinking about what to say.
Okay. Feels like our ongoing 10-year conversation. Anyone else? Like, how does that, because it can feel like really like soft, like, oh, this person did harm and now I love them. Like, that's not, is that really helping anyone? Am I just allowing them, Yeah.
I was actually thinking about this earlier today and encountering some people who are really difficult in a certain aspect of my life, and had an experience in kind of a social setting and noticing that these personalities that tend to be kind of destructive and toxic in a different environment tend to be more like alienated or outcast. And excuse me, I was observing that in a social setting and was like, wow, I think there's probably more like hurt and suffering underneath that isn't always evident in other settings. Because people can have masks and kind of wear a persona, and it was, I guess, a way of like softening into like compassion, and which I really struggle with certain types of personalities, and especially when I feel like there's like this ripple effect of harm. So yeah, I think it was a really helpful reminder of, like you're saying, this not only potentially the suffering that they may impose on the people they love around them, but also it's kind of like that hurt people, and and that I don't know that these are always like the happiest or most well-adjusted people, and feel like a sense of love and from those around them.
Yeah, and so that's so awesome it happened today. So I'm curious, do you remember, was there like a shift or change in like how you felt when you were like, oh, like was there a,
Yeah, I was in the meditation when you were talking about or mentioned kind of the facial expressions. I notoriously do not have a poker face. And so I was like thinking back into, I'll just be more specific. It was a work event that was at the Giants game. And so it like was a very different setting. And so there are certain personalities that, because of dynamics. And so I was just like, I was thinking about like my facial expressions in these conversations. And then later on being able to kind of take a step back and observe. And and I think it was me kind of catching myself too, and being like maybe quick to judge, or kind of carrying baggage from time, right, and experiences.
Yeah, and again, like the unburdening, when we're just like, this is who they are in relation to what they experience. And because I think when we feel like I should, Like I should get over this feeling because I should let everybody into my heart. It doesn't really, well, it doesn't work, A, and it doesn't give the same, like, I choose, right? There's a difference there, and I think that's a really important difference, and maybe the choice is made possible because you have more information, you see them in this different way, but there's also, I think that this intentionality with it, like Kimberly described too, of like, I choose to see that this person has already suffered. That's why they're doing this and making this harm. So, yeah, thank you. Anybody else? Yes, Mace.
So I'll say that we've been talking about this forever, but the only thing I have to really offer, and I haven't come hardly anywhere with this, is that like the just like me practice is really helpful. So if I think about what's going on politically, if someone gave me all the power right now to make decisions, it would be, I could be wildly harmful to the people who I think are harming other people right now. And so I can just like, that's the best I can do is like, and Vinny actually, one time I was crying about Syria. I think I told you the story, like weeping, baby Dharma practitioner. And he was like, oh, Mace, you'd be an authoritarian or you'd be a tyrant just like the rest of them. So, which I now understand and see. And so there's that. And then sort of like the mental health practitioner in me is like, we try to separate the behavior from the person. That is really hard to do right now. And then the last thing I'll say, so just like, oh yeah, so that behavior is unacceptable. There are behaviors that are unacceptable. So I really think that that's important. And then I think of like in the Vajrayana realm, there are beings of fierce compassion, and you see the deities that have like skulls around their necks. They're standing on like slayed skin. They've got like fangs, and their most compassionate word is no. Like no, like no you and your ego, right?
Yeah.
Like slashing you through your ego. But I like to think of I think one of the most compassionate words in the English language is no.
Beautiful.
And really like more times than it is yes. And if I think about the times in my life when I've said yes that I didn't want to, it was wildly uncompassionate for myself and for those I was interacting with that got all the seething resentment of my interaction for saying yes about something I didn't want to. So I've got a long way to go on this, but I definitely think when beings are being harmed in great numbers and the environment is being harmed, the answer is no.
Yeah.
But how do I say that no without hatred? That's the trick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do I embody those fierce dakinis?
I see it.
Yeah,
It's
we
already
come-
here.
We come
Yeah.
to Sangha.
Thank
And
you,
then I'll
Mace.
just say one thing, because you were talking about sitting with emotion, and I haven't shared this with this group yet, but I did go on retreat this summer with my mother. Questionable decision. But because of that, I sat in rage for 3 solid days. And thank God I've been coming and like working with Dharma teachers for 15 years, because I was like, oh, the instructions are not to do anything but to sit here in rage. Like, don't make more rage, don't push it away, don't get in the caught of the stories of your childhood, don't like fixate on what she's doing. I did all of that, but I remembered to come back over and over and over and just let it burn. And then afterwards we had a great time. So
I'm going to just say one thing in response, but yeah, I love that, Mace, and I think the clarity of the yes and the no. And then there's, this really important part too, that the aspiration and the action of bodhicitta. And actually, though it seems like going on the trip is far more important than planning the trip, like that aspirational bodhicitta is huge. And we actually practice so much there of no to the behavior, yes to loving you. No to the behavior, yes to loving you, right? And even if, again, God willing, we never have to meet some of these demonic beings, right? I still don't condone their behavior. And yes, I still commit to like loving you in your dysfunction. So, yeah, thank you. Next lifetime. Yeah. You're coming back because you're a committed bodhisattva, so.
Well, that was basically what I was going to say. I work with an astrologer, if anyone knows Caroline Casey. So astrology not as predictive and superstitious, but as a beautiful metaphoric language. And what she says is, we don't hate the person, we hate their project. And it is because, oh, I'm so glad I made Mace laugh. So it is because I love you so much that we need to find you a different project.
Yes, I love that. That's a great analogy. So thank you all for that problematizing. Yeah, I read that and I was like, wow. He cried when Mao died. And like, it's just that immediacy of care and concern. Okay, so then next stanza, those desiring speedily to be a refuge for themselves and other beings should interchange the terms of I and other, and thus embrace a sacred mystery. So those desiring speedily to be a refuge for themselves and other beings should interchange the terms of I and other, and thus embrace a sacred mystery. So this is what we've been talking about here, this ability to kind of recognize our desire to be protected from outer harms and inner harms, our desire to be happy, that's everyone's. And that the sacred mystery here is the way Pema describes it, it's like the way our nature of mind can be obscured by clouds, and the clouds are this thinking only of ourselves. But if we can recognize others, it's like the sun shines through and the mind has this brighter, bigger quality. And again, not as a, this is a Buddhist belief, but like check out your own mind when it's clouded by self-centered projects. I love that, of I got to do this, I got to be this, I got to da-da. And there's some of that that's needed. Like we have to move through the world, we got to get shit done, right? But when that completely encompasses our day-to-day waking experience, we're missing out. I know all of you are in this room because you have had glimpses or even sustained moments of the beauty of the nature of your own mind when it's unencumbered. Maybe it's just a couple breaths, maybe it's longer. So it's all these ways of like, how do we keep getting there into that beautiful place? And when we're in that beautiful place, it's not like, oh, now I'm in this spacious, sunlit, spacious nature of mind, I should help people. It's just what we want to do, right? I was saying a couple weeks back, my favorite definition for bodhicitta is once we recognize just how good and beautiful it is to connect to our own heart, the next natural thing is to want everybody to feel that connection. So it's like, oh, it feels so good to be connected to my own heart. Of course I want everybody to feel that, like that naturalness. Okay, next somewhat hard part here. Because of our attachment to our bodies, we're terrified by even little things. This body then, this source of so much fear, who would not revile it as the worst of enemies? So there's been a number of times, I think 16 to be precise, in which Shanti Deva has talked about the body, very often as a place of kind of defilement, meaning we spend too much attention and too much obsession with our body and its functioning. Now there's like a healthy amount of we need this body in order to be embodied and practice. Needless to say, we need to not completely deny it and avoid it. But this attachment, right, specifically meaning this desire for our body to be a certain way, for our body to kind of give us things we want, that can kind of create this shempa, this like hook, this like attachment. So you might remember way back in the beginning, I wonder if I wrote Just gonna re-look up Shempa again because it's right at the beginning, but essentially this way in which we get hooked or tugged by something we like, or something that we don't like. It's just that tug or the energy of that emotion. And we have so much Shempa around our bodies. And I know this has always been true, but like, whoa, are we obsessed with our bodies in contemporary culture? That they live forever, that they look young forever, that they are, this, that, and the other. And, part of cutting through this delusion of separateness is being able to kind of like loosen that obsessive quality with our bodies. And this is a tricky one because, I think about, we really identify with our bodies. The only thing maybe we identify more with is our face, which is part of our body, for the record. But like, this whole sense of like me and mine, it's definitely this body, right? Like this is where I've always been. And so to kind of like loosen and, in some parts of the earlier chapters, he talks about, the body as just being this beautiful vessel, this like boat that carries us towards the enlightened activities. But that's a very like different way of acting towards the body than the kind of obsession. And it's pretty funny because we live in a time when the word being embodied means a lot of different things. And a lot of embodiment practices are actually just kind of further making us feel attached to the body as a shell, as an outer practice, of like making the body feel good, make the body feel strong. But, embodiment, meaning like this sense of deep connection with the body, that's what we did in our practice, right? Where we recognize the qualities of the body with appreciation, with humbleness, where we recognize that our bodies are just like all other bodies and like not making us special, unique, or different. And then I think, everyone in this room, to at least some extent, oh boy, these bodies change, right? Such a great teaching and such a, downhill, uphill battle, such a downhill slope, uphill battle, right? To try to keep them fixed and solid. But that is very much what the Identity Project would have us do. Oh, Chris, do you have a comment there? Let's hear.
Yeah, if I could just share something
Sure.
personal. I recognize a lot of you. For those of you who don't know me, if I come off like a nut job, the people who do know me, thank you. I'm a nut job and you let me hang out with you anyways. But yeah, I'm a mental health professional as well, and I've trained in hospice, and I've worked in hospice and palliative care. But I've never worked with anyone who has taken the newly fairly available option of a medically assisted end of life. And I did that. That's what I did at work today.
Wow.
Was I had a final session with someone who is going to be leaving her body tomorrow.
Beautiful. Sounds very moving, Chris.
I
Yeah.
can't believe I just did that and didn't cry.
Yeah, these bodies, right? They are headed one way. They're headed one way. And, that very famous saying of the Buddha is, the death is always certain, but when is not. And so our practice can be kind of inspired by that not knowing. And this is, I've been trying to teach my friend's 12-year-old son how to meditate, and definitely meditations on death, not that exciting for 12-year-olds, just for the record. But it is true, I said to him, I was like, well, all meditations are preparation for death. And he's like, I'm out. I was like, but we're all gonna die. He's like, I guess that's true. So that inevitable truth, and that meditation helps us prepare to sit in the fire, right, of whatever's happening, including what could be, the end of our life or moving towards the end of our life. It's that, kind of exquisite tenderness towards ourselves. And what's so interesting is when you look, I've looked a lot at burnout among healthcare providers, and palliative care docs have some of the lowest levels of burnout. So folks working with people at the end of life, would you think like, well, that's the most depressing job? It's actually not. And part of the reason is, I use the word exquisite because there's a beautiful paper and set of papers on what's called exquisite compassion. And palliative care providers have this such a closeness to the truth of impermanence. You know, there's like nothing, there's no barrier in between. There's no like messing around. And that there's an authenticity. And we kind of want that quality in our practice. We want to cut through, right? And that's why we do these practices on impermanence, to help us remember, like, this body will be a corpse. Death comes without warning, right? We must practice now with exertion, is the next line of that prayer. And it's, you know, it's a funny one. And the, you know, Shanti Deva, as I said, he's like mentioned it so many different times, but also it's sometimes contradictory. If we can offer the function or utility of our body in, you know, service towards all beings, he's really, you know, encourages us to focus on the body. But if we're focusing on the body purely for our own self-gratification, he suggests that we will find no happiness in that endeavor. And I'm like a little in between. Like, I like a good workout, you know? And, you know, I do like the idea of even dedicating your good workout to the benefit of all beings, right? That's the beauty of the Bodhisattva path, is you just, you know, there's one practice early on where Pema suggests, like, just look around your room and imagine offering up your favorite items, like that you're going to give them. You don't even have to give them away. Just practice giving them away. This aspirational bodhicitta has so much momentum. And then the last stanza I want to share with you all tonight, this is another one of the most famous, well, we'll end in the most famous one, but I'll start with these other three. If to serve myself I harm another, I'll suffer later in the realms of hell. If for others' sake I harm myself, every excellence will be my heritage. So this idea that, you know, if I, you know, serve myself, you know, I try to essentially greed. If I do what is good for me at the consequence of others, I will find myself later in the realms of hell. And again, even if you don't necessarily ascribe to other lives and that we will pay for our karmic debt, certainly every action has some sort of reaction, and greed, God willing, does have a momentum that leads us downhill. But if we instead are like offering with that generosity, every excellence will be my heritage. Wanting what is best for me, stupidity and lower realms result. Let this be changed, applied to others, honors and realms of bliss will come. So this idea of, again, that self-centered wanting will make me, you know, reborn into lower realms, is what he's saying here. And then enslaving others, forcing them to serve me, I will come to know the state of servitude. But if I labor for the good of others, mastery and leadership will come to me. And then this is the famous stanza as part of this couplet. All the joy the world contains has come through wishing happiness for others. All the misery the world contains has come through wanting pleasure for oneself. Again, Shanti Deva likes to go big here with his generalizations. So there is some joy in the world that isn't about wishing happiness for others, including ice cream, surfing, what else we got? Backpacking, right? Cats. That about covers it. You know, but this idea, and the Dalai Lama says this over and over, it's like one of his favorite quotes, like, all the joy the world contains has come through wishing happiness for others. All the misery the world contains has come through wanting pleasure for oneself. And the invitation again here is like, check it out, you know. And there is, I have to say, great contemporary research, which research has its own flaws. But when you look at this trait of altruism, so what he's describing here is like an altruistic orientation a desire and orientation towards being of service. People who have higher trait levels of altruism and then higher behaviors of altruism, meaning people who dedicate themselves to help others by their nature, or who just do so as activities, not only do they live longer, have greater well-being, less depression, more satisfaction. I mean, there's just this whole kind of constellation of benefits. And there's even this like oxytocin endorphin release from helping others, sometimes called like helper's high. And it's looked down upon like, oh, you should just be doing good because it's good. But, you know, he says it right here, all the joy of the world comes from wishing for the benefit of others. Like, it's okay to feel joy and rejoicing for doing good. And yeah, I think it's a beautiful message. And this doesn't mean, you know, you have to quit your job and be of service entirely if that's not already your job. It's that, like, how can we orient towards whatever the job is, whatever our relationships are, with that kind of aspiration of service? Like, does that indeed make us happier? Any thoughts on that? Does that sound phony? Does that sound realistic? Yeah, please.
Yeah, I guess I'm just sort of curious how, so I recently came across this concept that I think you're very familiar with, which is this idea of empathetic distress. And so the idea that, you know, someone may come to you with distress and you may empathize with that distress, but actually when you try to sort of provide, you know, sort of support, that actually can be bad for both you and the person, that because, you know, for example, you know, for whatever reason, you're not setting the boundary, and then you then start to resent the person, you start to resent the situation. So I guess that's just sort of the thing that crossed my head, where it's sort of like, you know, this idea that like, if I do it in service of others, you know, things will be good. If I do it in service of myself, you know, that it won't be good, but that sometimes you need those boundaries. And so it felt like there's some nuance there that maybe could be.
Yeah, Shanti Deva is not big on nuance, for sure. And I think empathetic distress, right? The other side is empathetic concern, you know, and the concern, you know, really relates to compassion. And so often empathetic distress is associated with what's called like emerging. So we're not only like, oh my God, my friend is, you know, they're about to lose their housing, they just lost their job and their relationship ended, let's say, right? That would be a big deal. And our distress would be, I can't handle it. It's like this self-oriented orientation. So often empathetic distress is when we get kind of enmeshed. So you're describing it well with the like boundary. And it's funny because it might sound like we're forcing an aloofness, but actually the first step of grounded empathy is that's not happening to me. And I care, you know, and I have boundless compassion, even if I can't fix it for them. The like, I can't help, it's too much. Like, if you're saying that or feeling that, like, it's good to notice the desire for control and efficacy, because often that gets in the way of like an unencumbered kind of helping. So, yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other thoughts on that? All the joys in the world come from helping others. It's just, it's a beautiful line. And yeah, we can sit with that for a moment. We have a couple more announcements than usual tonight. So let's start with a little closing dedication. And so taking a moment, finding the breath, finding the body. And considering whatever energies are in the body. We did this beautiful practice for this body. So once again, kind of sweeping our attention through the face, the neck and shoulders, the heart and the belly, the hands, the legs and the feet. And then imagining that we can offer up this practice, symbolically offering the energy of this practice further, even once again, for all beings. So if it's comfortable, placing hands together at the heart and dedicating the energy of this practice, the momentum, the vitality, towards this outrageous and inconceivable wish that all beings of all time, all beings as long as space remains, could be free from inner and outer harms, could experience love and belonging, that all beings everywhere of all time, as long as space remains, could be absolutely free. Thanks, everyone. Treat.